This is Eitan Weinstein.
And I'm Naor Menninger, and you're listening to Two Nice Jewish Boys.
In collaboration with Australian Jewish News, check them out at ajn.timesofisrael.com. Also in collaboration with Arutz Sheva, israelnationalnews.com. Back in May, everything lay in the balance. Israel had just concluded its fourth elections in 2 years, and it seemed as if it was in yet another political stalemate, on the way to another round of elections. But then, at the last minute, we witnessed one of the craziest political twists this country has ever experienced. Naftali Bennett, leader of the 7-seat Yamina party, agreed to form a government with a coalition of center, left-wing, and Arab parties, on one condition, that he serve as prime minister. The entire country was astounded. Yamina, which means right, as in right-wing, ran on a traditionally conservative platform and on the explicit promise to not form a government with his rivals, Lapid and the Arab parties. Many, if not most of his voters, felt betrayed. But all of the elected MKs in Bennett's party went along with his political coup d'etat, all but one. Amichai Chikli is a Jerusalem-born ex-Israeli Navy SEAL and the founder of the Tavor Academy for Social Leadership. He has quite the resume, but what took Chikli to the national stage was his decision to stand up to the leader of his party, today's Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett. Chikli is still a member of the Yamina party, but he sits on the opposition. We are honored and thrilled to have MK Amichai Chikli on the podcast today. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we get to the episode, we want you, dear listener, to ask yourself a question. What have you done these past 2 years? You know, the pandemic hit us all really hard. What have you really done other than perfect that matzo ball soup recipe of yours? Nothing. Now, we all want to add purpose and meaning to our life, and we have the way to really, really make your dreams come true. If you're listening, you're likely interested in Israel with hopes of traveling here soon. Well, lucky for you, we've got the scoop on Masa Israel Journey. With an amazing range of life-changing opportunities in Israel, Masa has many, many programs. They've got gap year programs, academics, internships, volunteering, and careers. The pandemic didn't stop them either, promoting options to study remotely while living in Israel. You don't have to be fluent in Hebrew or break your bank account. They even supply partial funding so you can make a positive impact on the world. You can fuel your passion and you can make your travel dreams a reality. Go to masaisrael.org and find out more.
Just one correction about my CV.
Yes.
So I served as an officer in the Navy, but I was not a Navy SEAL. I was in Sayeret Golani. I served 1 year to train Navy SEALs on, let's say, ground operations. Yes.
Okay.
It's in Hills,
that's not that.
To be accurate.
That's not that impressive.
Okay. Yeah.
No,
it's important to be.
That's incredible. Still,
very
nonetheless,
accurate.
it's true. Right. But wait, you weren't in Shayetet 13?
For 1 year as an officer, not as a soldier. As a soldier, I was in Sayeret Golani.
But as an officer, I mean, you're there along with them, no? Just
1 year, just 1 year.
Okay.
No, I just want to be accurate.
Okay.
Before we start, guys, Hanukkah is coming up. Purchase our mugs, BDS Tears mug.
And a nice Jewish boy mug.
Yes.
Nice.
2njb.com/merch and get your own mug or buy them as a gift for your friends.
So, why were you called a virus by your fellow MK from your own party?
That was a very interesting experience. So first, it's a computer virus. She made it clear.
Okay.
That's not
and
offensive.
Because I'm harming the
operating system.
The operating system of the party. Yeah.
They really despise you at the party, I guess.
Some of them, yeah. Not all of them.
But you're used to it by now, probably. No, I mean, at this point, you must have become immune.
Yeah, I am immune, and Look, most of the party members are okay. They're friendly. I think it's an ideological crisis. It's not like a personal one, and I'm not offended, and I'm not angry, and nothing.
But how do you feel about what took place?
Okay, so there are 3 dimensions. One is ethics, basic ethics. I call it kindergarten ethics, just to say the truth. So I think it's a disgrace what happened here, and I've never witnessed such a thing in Israeli politics. I mean, not to stand in your promises as a politician, it occurs, and it occurs many times. But here it is a different case, because it is not one promise that you couldn't keep because of the conditions, like, let's say, Benny Gantz. Here, these are all of the core promises of the party. From Judea and Samaria, young settlements, what we call the Ha'iteshvut HaTzeira, to what's going on in the Negev. We said, Bibi, you're not doing anything in the Negev. What's going on now in the Knesset? The electricity law, which means the electricity crime. Mm-hmm. Basically saying, let's connect hundreds of thousands of buildings that were built illegally
by Arabs
to electricity.
Yeah.
Without any governmental plan. It's crazy. And these are the small promises. And of course, never in any condition, Yair Lapid won't be the prime minister. And we will never sit with Meretz, because Meretz said that they want to send Israeli officers to Hague. And Ibtissam Merana, etc., not to mention Ra'am, the Arab list, that Bennett said they are the Hamas brothers.
Proxy.
Yeah.
But you did promise to replace Bibi.
No, we didn't. There was another promise to prevent another round of election.
But Bennett said, I should replace Bibi. You vote for me.
No, but he didn't say it like we said with Lapid,
that you
we
won't
will never sit with the Bibi. We never said Bibi is prohibited.
Not prohibited, but you said he has to be replaced.
Yeah, but Bennett said, and not once, that if you won't get at least 10, and in some interviews I think he made it also 15 mandates, it will be immoral
and illegitimate,
and non-democratic to be the prime minister. And I agree. I tend to agree.
I wonder if he does. I think it's safe to say.
He got used to it,
Yeah,
it is difficult.
I think it's safe to say that most people who voted Bennett assumed that Bibi would still be prime minister if a right-wing government would be formed.
Right.
Yeah.
They expected him to somehow push Bibi to more rightward, maybe extort some kind of rotational between Bibi and Bennett, or Sar and Bennett, or Sar and Bibi, some kind of something. But nobody saw this one coming. But I gotta ask you though, if you were Bennett, sincerely, you are offered this, like some politician I know told me, in Israel, when you are offered to be the prime minister, you need to be a complete imbecile to refuse. So if you were him, are you sure that you would have done something differently?
Look, there is a quote in Masechet Avot. Don't judge your friend until you be in his position. So I must admit, I was never offered to be the prime minister. And it will be difficult to answer this question. But when I look at it, it seems to me like Lord of the Ring. The ring has the power. And the question, can you resist the power of the ring? And I think he surrendered.
Even Frodo.
I think
last minute.
That's how I see it. It's the power, the temptation to power.
Yeah.
And that's the total moral collapse.
Yeah.
It's the perfect also analogy because at the end of the movie, Gollum sinks into the lava with the ring in his hand, and that's kind of what's happening to Bennett.
I don't want to go that far.
No, but I mean, I don't. We can't predict the future, but it seems to me, and this has been said before, that if elections are tomorrow, I don't know who's gonna vote for this guy. But the truth is, people said that about Gantz, and I'm
he
amazed.
ended up, yeah.
We'll see.
I'm amazed that so many people
But
voted for him.
what could Bennett have done differently? Like, what were his options, in your opinion? Or your option as a party?
Look, the thing is, I was not a part of the negotiations, so we have some, let's say, fog. Yeah, it is a bit foggy to know what exactly happened. But my feeling is that if he would say loud and clear, we're going to keep our promises to our voters, there won't be a left-wing government led by Yair Lapid with our fingers, I think Gideon Sa'ar would eventually
The very last
join
minute.
a right-oriented government.
Right. With Gantz, maybe, and
Maybe with guns. Yes, because eventually Gideon Sa'ar said he wanted to create a change in the law system. And he said that he is a right wing, ideologically, him and Elkin and the rest of the party. So, okay, like Benny Gantz, he said, I won't sit with Bibi. He promised to Ofira and Berko. They are very important. So he
TV show,
broke
guys.
the promise to Ofira and Berko. But he kept his ideology.
Yeah. Yeah, those who don't know, Gideon Sa'ar is because most of our audience is in the States. Maybe it's so hard, right, to understand all the parties here in Israel.
Yeah.
So Gideon Sa'ar is the leader of yet another right-wing, small, niche right-wing party that got even less mandates, I think, right? How many does he have? Six.
Yeah.
But he's like the nemesis of Bibi. He's a much bigger nemesis than Bennett.
I don't know if the nemesis is Nemesison. A small
A
nemesis.
little nemesis.
Yeah.
No, but as far as hate energies are concerned, he has deep-rooted hatred for Bibi.
And we can go back to
revenge.
Masechet Avot. הקנאה, התאווה והכבוד מוציאים את האדם. The קנאה,
Right,
jealousy,
the jealousy.
pride,
Yeah.
and the honor.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's fascinating to see what's going on in America with Kenosha, and it's quite amazing. You
Right.
spoke
Do
about
you think
to follow what's going on in Israel. We are following what's going on in America. We were following the squad. We are following everything that's going on. Afghanistan, and it's fascinating.
So let's go back to the beginning. You said there's 3 dimensions, and you mentioned that there's an ethical one, which is
and then there is the democratic part. I think, and if you read the Amit Segal excellent book, at the chapter when he writes about Bennett, he says there is a picture, and he says that Bennett broke the rules, the unwritten rules of Israel. Democratic system. First, there is no more meaning for the vote card. How do you call it?
Right.
The petek.
the ballot.
The ballot.
Why?
People voted for a very specific agenda, and they got the opposite. Second, in terms of the system, never such a small party claimed to take the prime minister office in exchange for an ideological shift. In some way, when we say about Netanyahu, shochad mirma farat emunim, and you can translate it fast because these are
bribe, and
Bribe.
and bribe.
Breaking
so
the trust.
that's a huge political bribe. You will get the prime minister office, and in return, you will sell all your promises to your voters.
But you know what? I got to disagree with you there because I
Kadima.
think I think we got what we deserved. I think that it was a perfect example of democracy. I think I got, as a voter for Bennett, I got what I deserved. I should have seen through Bennett. I should have been able to assess the fact that he is a liar.
Should you trust? I don't think he lied before.
I don't know if he lied ever in such a way.
It was okay, even more as a security minister, as a leader.
Yeah. But I take
you couldn't see it.
I take the individualistic approach, and I say, if someone fool me once, right? It's my responsibility, the trust I put in another person, and if they break that trust, then I need to bear the responsibility.
But I think it's very, very difficult when you don't know the person, like from personal experience, to see in advance what exactly he will do in this kind of a situation. He has a very serious record on business, military.
It's a very serious guy.
Education minister, security minister.
But to me, that's exactly the power of democracy.
I didn't see it. I didn't see it coming.
But that's the power of democracy. There's a feedback loop. Now I will never, and I hope to God that people who voted for Bennett will never vote for him again. Will never put their trust in him again. Okay. And that should be the price he pays, and that's how democracy works.
But he did play the game. It's not like it was what he did is in the game, right?
It is in the game. Yeah.
So.
And if we are a good society, hopefully we value the truth, and hopefully that will be represented.
The problem is, though, that the memory is short.
Very short.
And he might somehow do a good job relative to the cards. Relative to the cards he was dealt as a prime minister, he might be able. For example, okay, I as a secular right wing, I do not want to fund the ultra-orthodox.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
I want them to go out and work. I want them to get out from my life, live and let live, but I do not wish for my money to fund them at any rate. So if I see that they effing the ultra haredi, I might say to myself in a few years' time, maybe they sold the state to the Arabs, but at least they dealt with the ultra-Orthodox. And then I might consider, no?
Okay, I have a different approach towards the Haredi population. And first, I would say to just finish what we start with. So there was the ethic dimension, the democratic dimension, and then the national dimension. This government is led by the most extreme left parties, Meretz, Labor. Once Labor was a Zionist party, when you had Yitzhak Rabin and you had people like Yigal Allon and others. But now with Meirav Michaeli, Ibtissam Erana, Naama Lazimi, that forms a committee with Sami Abu Shkhada, who is a Hamas supporter, that's a joke. So that's on the national level. Now back to Naftali Bennett. It might sound weird, but I wish to see him successful as a prime minister. I want this country to prosper, to be secure. I don't want him to fail, because now if he fails, it means the state of Israel is failing. And I hope that even though he will succeed on the next election, because of moral aspects and democratic aspects, he will fail in the election, but not as the manager and the leader of the state at the moment. That's my
it's a tough perspective to hold, because it's a lot of conflict.
Yeah, it is. And about the ultra-Orthodox, first of all, when you speak about the money that goes now to the Muslim Brotherhood party, Ra'am in Israel, is enormous comparing to any funding that the state have made to ultra-Orthodox yeshivot.
Not sure.
30 billion shekels in 5 years. That's insane.
How much do we pay for children's support, though? For the entire...
It's not the same. It's not the same numbers. It's far, far away. It's a couple of billion, not 30 million, in the same period of time. So that's the
And child support, I think, cancels out on
and don't forget, after all, the haredi are they are part of Am Israel. They want the country to succeed. They want the army to succeed. We can see that the young generation in the Haredi society, look just today, the guy who was murdered this morning, who made aliyah, and he was in the Haredi paratroopers.
Yeah.
And so I think we can see changes. And also, I'm for investing money in the Arab society. I'm not against it. But I think it is very wrong to do it when you let the Muslim Brotherhood to be like the boss in terms of the money that goes to Arab society, and the other one who will go to every single matnas or a court,
local cultural center.
Cultural center or a sport court, and they will go to every Arab village to celebrate the opening, and they will say, look, the Islamic Brotherhood gave you this money, they gave you this infrastructure, and now you should vote for us on the next election.
Tell us a little bit more how that works. Like, how is the money actually going through the Muslim Brotherhood?
Okay, so first we are speaking about 30 billion shekels in the next 5 years. That's first. And then there's a small office. It's called the Rashut Lepituach HaChevra Ha'aravit, the Office for Promoting Arab Society. Ra'am managed to assign all the leaders of the office, from the CEO and the senior management. And this organization, this office, basically decides where does the money go to. Now, it is more complicated, and then you have the offices, but they set for hours and hours with the treasury to make sure that they can have the maximum amount of control as a party. And
it was during the talks of this budget.
And so, for instance, they have 1 billion shekels that it's like cash that they can give to local authorities, and they control it. And they have 50 million shekels for Arab culture, and they control it. And they managed to create discount and for some specific local authorities that had some problem with money, like Taibe.
Yeah, they erased debts for municipalities.
Yeah, so they have a lot of power. And you can see even Druze villages from the north saying, oh, that's amazing. Now we have Ra'am. They will take care of us.
But how is that different from what the Haredis have been doing for the last decades?
It is different because in the Haredi, look, the Arab society, the Ra'am, the Muslim Brotherhood, was not a significant force. There were many other forces within the Arab society, and still they are. But now, when you give them so much power and so much money, they will become, in the future, 5 years from now, after they will sponsor every afternoon activity for youth from their budget, they will control the next generation of Arabs, and they're against Arab teenagers to go and serve in the army for sure, but even in civil servant, they are against it. Mm-hmm. So this is just to take the wrong direction with the Arab society.
I'm gonna say something super controversial. I'll get a lot of shit for this, but I think it's the difference between parasitic and viral. There is something destructive about the culture that the Arab society is promoting, meaning they want to take down Zionism in Israel. And while the Haredi community is maybe leeching off of public funds and taking it away, it's in their interest to keep Israel alive, and you might even say that they're Zionists. So I think that's the difference. One is destructive at its core, and the other one is...
Yeah, and to be accurate with that word destructive, and when Mansour Abbas made his speeches...
he went to the synagogue in the last war.
And went to the synagogue in Lod. Some of us in the political system, and me as well, I thought, hey, is not extremist like Ayman Odeh, like Ballot, like Ahmed Tibi and Sami Abu Shhada and all the extremists in the other Arab parties, and maybe there is something new. We didn't know the entire list of Ram. We didn't know Al-Harumi or Iman Hatib or Walid Taha, and we didn't know what their opinions exactly. And but soon after the election, and the form of the government, we saw Al-Harumi, who passed away. We saw him coming to Akko to support the families that their kids went and made lynch and
burned
killed
person alive.
the Professor Arevend and harmed Anushot severely Elad Barzilai and Ganashvili. And so to see Al-Harumi in Akko supporting those people.
He's dead now, but he was like third place or something like that in the party.
Second, third,
Yeah,
and I think third. And then you had Walid Taha when prisoners were escaped from Megiddo prison, and prisoners with blood on their hands, and he said they are the heroes, and the terrorists are those who put them in prison. So I said, okay, that's not very a moderate approach. And in the past few weeks, we learned about the ties between senior Ra'am personnel and Hamas leaders. Number 6 in the list, who shared in Facebook Hamas propaganda, is not in the Knesset, but number 6 is quite high on the list.
It could have been if they took a minister.
Easily, with like a Norwegian. So that's one example. And then you had number 20 and number 15, and they are in this NGO that called number 48, and this NGO gave money to Hamas militant families who fall in the war with Israel. So you can see that this party is far, far away from being a moderate party. It's an extremist party. And the last video we saw was Raed Salah and Mansour Abbas together.
But don't you agree, like, to our audience, it's worth mentioning that there was a negotiation.
It's true.
Between
Netanyahu,
the Likud and Ram, not that they would be a part of the government, but that they would support it from the outside, and Bibi would have formed a minority government. And the reason it didn't happen was because of Smotlich, who is the leader of another right-wing, the Settlers Party.
Yeah.
Right, who are not, right now, they're not in the coalition, they're in the opposition. So my question to you is, do you agree with Smotlich?
Yeah, so so at a time when I didn't know exactly who are the other personnel in Ra'am beside Mansour Abbas, I wasn't a fan of the idea, but I said, I don't think we need to dismiss this option totally. It's a different, I hear a different sound from Mansour Abbas, and maybe he's serious, but in the past few months we have managed to learn the party and the other personnel in the party and everything that goes on, and I think that looking backwards, Smotlich was absolutely right. There is no reason to form a government with an anti-Zionist party at all. And as we know, in order to be in the Knesset, you need to recognize Israel as a Jewish and a democratic state. You do not need to be a Zionist, but just to recognize the right of the Jews to have their own sovereign state. And I think that if you will ask the Arab leaders of Ram, they weren't going to give you a positive answer on that very simple question.
But from what I understand, Bibi didn't want to actually form a government with them. Is that the main difference? So, I mean, Smotlich was against even getting their support from the outside. And you think that also would be...
would have been dependent on them for everything
So they could have blackmailed you, basically.
Yeah. Okay, so why is it... But my question is, because you are boots on the ground, right? You are now, you have been storming Israel, north, south, and you know Arabs also. And there are moderate Arabs in Israel. I don't know how many.
Not as a political power, unfortunately.
So why is that?
So look, when you see the nets, you can see that you have people like Yusuf Haddad.
He was on the show.
Yeah. So you can see here and there some voices. Bridget Gabriel, amazing Bridget Gabriel. She has a quote. She said, "The irrelevant majority." Maybe there are many people in the Arab society that want to be a part of Israel, and I hope that's really the case. But when it comes to politics, you have the joint list, ultra extremist, and then you have Ram, also Islamic extremist. We don't have at the moment any moderate Arab party in the Knesset. We do have MK, who is moderate. He's not a big Zionist, but he's moderate, he's pragmatic.
Meretz.
Yes, and that's Isawi Fridge. And I think he's very... I think he's a very positive figure in the Knesset, because when you see violence, he's condemning the violence strongly. And you know what? I'm going to risk and say, even though Ibtissam Marana had in their past very, very bad expressions and quotes.
She's in the Labour Party.
She's in the Labour Party. Today, she said very loud and clear that she's against violence, and the guy who made the terrorist attack today is nothing but a hero. And Kitsu, and I think
Abbas
it
said
is
the
is anything but a hero.
No, he didn't say the same. He didn't say the same at all, because he didn't refer to the specific event.
And if he
They
would have,
say-
it
would
would
be
you
different.
believe him?
It would be different, totally different.
The problem is, it's hard to believe those guys. It's hard to believe those guys.
First of all,
Which brings us back to our original discussion.
It's true, but when you condemn strongly a specific event, that's one thing. And when you say very, very generally that you are against violence in Myanmar, Budapest, or Jerusalem, that's not the quote, but that's like,
Yeah.
come on.
So take us. Okay, well, that's it's true. But let's take us back to that time where let's get a little bit into maybe
nostalgic.
the stories of
The
of
origin,
the elections.
The origins.
How did it all kind of come about? Take us like a play-by-play, and
Have you always wanted to be,
ultimately no, but I'm saying the night of the night of the decision. Were there any deliberations? Were you thinking about maybe going with
The process was around 3 weeks.
Yeah.
First was the moment when I recognized that's really an option. It's actually might happen.
What?
The
government.
Yeah. So I said, whoa, that's okay. Now I need to rearrange my thoughts and to decide what's going on. And I remember a phone with a friend, and so he said good luck in the Knesset, and I said easy. I'm not even sure I'm gonna stay, because I was asking me, would I resign? Would I stay? What am I supposed to do? And another friend asked me, look, if they're going to form a government with Lapid, what are you going to do? I said, no, it's not going to happen. And if it will, I can't tell you exactly, but I'll give you the
Summary.
Yeah.
No, not the side. So I told them DB.
the initials?
Yeah, the initials.
OMDB.
Which means over my dead body. so that was the beginning of it. And then you had Mivtza Shomer Chomot.
Right, the operation.
So they said Naftali Bennett went to the president, and the night before was the end of the period where Bibi could have formed a government. And then when it
expired.
It expired at 12 at night. And then I said, okay, now that it expired, it means that Naftali Bennett willing to take the actual risk that Lapid will form a government. So that's the Rubicon.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to publish the letter, which was ready for a week and a half. I'm going to publish it because I wasn't sure if I'm going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I decided to publish the letter. And after around...
What did the letter say, more or less?
It says, look, we were very clear with our voters about the direction of the party. We were very clear about our agenda in terms of national aspect. We were very clear in terms of democratic aspect. You said it would be immoral, etc., etc. We got nothing to do with the demonstration of the black flags, Meretz, Labor, Ram, nothing in common. Why should we fulfill the dream of the left? Mm-hmm. And look at what's going on in the world. We had Trump who lost for the progressives, and I wasn't a big fan of Trump, but on the other hand, you have the conservative, you have the progressive, and you see it would be a collapse of the conservative,
Right.
let's say, world alliance.
There's a bigger picture.
Yeah,
here.
there is a bigger picture, and you are serving now the forces who are against us in Europe and in America. There will be celebration in Tehran. There will be celebration in Washington, Biden's Washington.
Mm-hmm.
That is the wrong direction strategically. You are serving the bad guys.
Okay.
So that was
sounds
that
like
was
a very fierce. I wouldn't want to get such a letter in the mail.
that was the direction. But then after a few days, there was a big operation because of Shomer Chomot.
Yeah.
It was Jerusalem Day. There were missiles coming from Gaza, and then there was this operation, and I went to Miluim, the reserve service, and when I was on the Gaza border, Naftali Bennett called and said, "Come urgently." I couldn't come. I came after a couple of days.
We have something more important than the war.
Yeah. So I said I can't come, but then when I came, he said, "Look, it's not gonna happen. We're not gonna form a left wing government. Mm-hmm. We saw what's happening. We cannot form a government with Ram. It's now just be quiet for a week. Don't go to the press. And I promise you, we're going to establish a right wing, and I need you to help me. So please attack Bibi on Twitter so we can press him, etc., etc." And I said, "Okay, no problem. If we're staying in the right wing ideology, Zionist ideology, I'm with you." Mm-hmm. So I didn't went to the press, and I came back to be like a soldier for Yamina party. And then I found out on the Telegram that the negotiation to form this government is kept going on. And then I said, okay, at first you cheated Am Israel, mm-hmm. but now this is personal. Now you cheated.
Stabbed you in the back.
Yeah, now you cheated me.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, that's a different. That's a new chapter
down the line.
That's a new chapter for us.
Yeah.
And that's just crazy. It is crazy. I wanna take us back for a second. Did he ask you to leave? You were in Miluim around Gaza,
Exactly,
doing reserves during the operation.
Golani reservist, yeah.
And he asked you to come back.
Yeah, he didn't knew what exactly I was doing. So
but it's kind of.
No, I told him, look, I cannot come back. So when the operation, it was a short operation, and after the operation, I came.
What was your last conversation with him?
The last conversation was bichlal with Chok HaEzrachut. At the night of the, how do you call it?
It's the citizen,
Citizens
law.
bill.
Yeah.
which is to basically allow
nation state. Not nation state.
No, not the
Not
nation
nation
states. To
state.
allow the reunification, right?
To prevent unifications of Arabs coming from the West Bank or Gaza with Arabs who lives in Israel.
Because they marry each other, Israeli Arab citizens with non-citizens, in order to slowly but surely increase their population, and it's like
it would have resulted in granting citizenship to something like a couple 100,000 Palestinians.
Okay, so that was after the government was
Nahon.
formed,
That was
and
the
they
last.
needed.
That was the last conversation. And at first, and I even said it on the radio, I said, of course, I'm going to vote with the coalition. That's a Zionist law, and it's an important law, and I wouldn't want to create a situation where Arabs can now marry and get citizenship in Israel. But then what happened, and we can see it now with the electricity law, at the middle of the night, they started to negotiate, and then they said, okay, first, this law is only for 90 days, and in 90 days from now, we're going to shape the law from the beginning with Ram and Meretz leading the changes in the law. First, second, we're going to approve between 3,000 to 5,000, depends on immediate authorization for marriage. And when I heard about it, and I see that there is no paper, and we need to just approve the law without understanding what happened in these 3 hours with Ram and Meretz pressing the leaders of Yamina. And in addition, it was also, you needed to, it was Atzaat Emun. Do you support or you don't support the government?
Yes, because you can unite a specific law that you want to legislate. You can unite it, merge it with a law that supports the government or does not support. And
so that was the most. It was more difficult than to vote against this government, because to vote against this government ideologically was perfectly clear to me that I am against it. Here, it was, let's say, 2 bad options, and you needed to choose the worst. And the worst, eventually, my conclusion was, I'm not gonna give the government Teudat Kashrut, like a kosher
vote
stamp.
Of confidence.
Yeah, that's one thing. And the process, how this law was changed in the middle of the night, I said, that's not how you pass laws in this country.
You told it to him on the phone call?
I told him face to face, but it wasn't to Naftali Bennett. I said it to Ayelet Shaked. I said it to
number 2.
I said it to Ayelet Shaked. I told her I'm not going to vote with the party. I didn't say deliberately that I'm going to vote against it, because there was still a couple of hours, and there's the famous video when you have Kish and Ayelet, and everyone is trying to convince me. And in 15 minutes before the vote, I said, okay, I'm going to vote against it, because I was the finger that decides. And then I said, look, if you are voting with the coalition, basically that's to cancel your vote against the government, because of Atzaat Emun.
Wow.
But in the end, it didn't. I mean, the vote of no confidence didn't really affect anything. Meaning the government still stands. We just recently had the budget was passed, which means that barring any extraordinary thing that happens, Yair Lapid is going to be prime minister in about, a year and a half?
Should we be afraid?
That's because of the budget. That's when the budget passed.
Should we
be concerned about Yair Lapid being prime minister?
Whoa. Yeah.
Why?
I don't see Yair Lapid as a leader. I don't see Yair Lapid as a strong Zionist. I don't see him as an intellectual who understands geopolitics, who understands force, who understands military affairs, who understands foreign affairs.
His father was amazing.
But in the end, he is the puppet master that in the end brought down Benjamin Netanyahu.
His advisors the puppet managers or
He's
whatever
just
you
the
call it.
puppet.
Is not the puppet. Is a serious player in terms of let's say the political game, the local political game, and he created this honey trap for the right wing and for Bennett, and that's true. And strategically, that's a nice move, but it doesn't make him a strong player on foreign affairs, military affairs, and it is more the weakness of Naftali Bennett rather than the force of Yair Lapid.
He will be prime minister
August
for
2023.
Yeah, which gives him about a year that overlaps with Biden if Biden's not mumbled his way, out of existence by then. That gives him a year overlapping with Biden. How dangerous is that?
Look, fortunately, we have a very strong opposition, a fighting opposition, and I hope that the pressure that comes from the public, from the Zionist majority in Israel, will prevent him to do drastic moves that will affect the future of our children.
But what kind of moves could he do?
Okay, let's take a look. In the past few months, the fight against anti-Semitism was damaged dramatically because of his speech about anti-Semitism, basically saying that any form of discrimination is parallel to anti-Semitism. So these are just words, but when it comes to national leadership, words means a lot. So I think it is a very significant damage that was already made by the foreign minister of Israel, Yair Lapid. And when it comes to what's going on in Judea and Samaria, the Palestinians, alongside the EU and many states in Europe as single players. The EU is a player, and then you have Holland, the Netherlands, and France, and other states. They invest heavily in dominating Judea and Samaria. Huge construction project all over B and C open area in Judea and Samaria. They are establishing a Palestinian state. They are creating facts on the ground. And we have now a very, very weak government that doesn't care about it. It's not in their agenda to prevent the Palestinians from shaping the future in Judea and Samaria. So we can see new roads, new villages, destruction of incredibly important archaeological sites like Tel Aroma, Hashmonite Palace, and Areival, the Temple of Joshua, which is an amazing archaeological site. And now you have construction of a neighborhood of Shechem. It is a tragedy.
So, I mean, he's going to be prime minister for what, 2 years, 3 years, Yair Lapid?
Yeah, 2 years.
And in that time, you think he can do serious damage to Israel?
Look, I think that if he will be the leader of Israel and we will be in, let's say, in a war, I don't trust him.
You'll have to fight.
I don't trust
following
him.
his orders, basically.
Sure, okay, we will do it, but I don't trust him.
Do you see any way out of it? I mean, what could be a scenario that would save us from a Lapid premiership?
We all know political is a very unpredicted system, and anything can happen. Even the events today can, let's say, shatter the structure of this government. We don't know exactly. I think that we should continue to criticize this government and to fight, and eventually I think it will collapse.
So you're hopeful still. There's hope as far as you're concerned.
We're always hopeful.
What yeah.
I got to ask one last thing.
Okay.
Politically speaking, for you,
Mm-hmm.
are we going to see a party led by Amichai Chikli in the next elections?
Look, it's too early to say.
Hopefully it's not too early. Hopefully
I
it's
think
right around the corner.
Maybe. For now, the only thing that I care about is to make sure the compass is in the right direction.
You get a lot of love from the public. I think.
Yeah. I'm very. It is very. First, it warms my heart. It's mamash meragesh, exciting, and I never experienced this kind of popularity, and it's also bring with it responsibility, and not to let down these people.
Mm-hmm.
And I will do everything I can to support the Zionist parties. And if it will mean that we need to form a new party because of the political conditions, we will do it.
Because it's worth mentioning that according to Israeli law, if now Bennett can call you a rebel, basically, which means that
and
legally...
prevent me from running in an existing party.
Yeah, which is ridiculous. Yeah, there's such a law.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it is
Wait,
ridiculous
explain that.
because
Explain
the
it.
philosophy of the law is to prevent a
Rebels.
distortion. No,
Yeah.
a distortion in public's will.
Of the will
Yeah.
of the voter.
Which
Yeah.
is exactly what Bennett did.
Yeah.
So wait, what is the law?
It happened. It was legislated because there was a tendency to Knesset members from big parties. They would betray the party
To become an officer, a
minister.
minister,
Ah.
yeah, a
in
minister.
another government. So they said let's legislate a law that if a member of a party rebels, he will be punished.
But that can only happen by the leader of the party declaring him a rebel?
Yes, but he can only do that at under certain circumstances. If you vote against the budget, for example, which you just did.
Yeah, but you need to get something in return from a rivalry party.
So it will go to court.
First of all, what a
yeah.
ridiculous law. Second of
Yeah.
all, can you report the leader as a rebel?
Yeah,
Looking into it.
I'm considering to do it.
Oh my God, that is the
Yeah.
epitome of irony.
Uh-huh.
That's just insane.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Okay, so I gotta ask. We don't have much time left, but I have to ask. Why did you join politics? Why did you need that in your life?
After a decade
Except winning the sexiest Knesset member
Oy
award
vavoy.
on Twitter.
No, it's a mess with
Oh,
my
yeah?
wife now.
Was there an actual?
It's,
yeah?
but it's look, ככה. After more than a decade of Zionist education, I wanted to try and create an impact on a wider scale, on the political scale. I wanted to see Zionist basic values back at the heart of the system. And in the past 4 years, we had with us in the family a new Ola Hadasha, a lone soldier. She was in the Mechina and she lived with us because she didn't have...
Like Eitan was,
her,
by the way.
her family was in San Francisco.
Lone soldier. Yeah.
Now she's in Columbia
wow.
University and she's planning to come back to Israel. And
Nice.
she served in the intelligence. And she said when she was assigned as a Chayelet Mitztayenet, she was like awarded as an excellent soldier.
Yeah.
And she said, my friend in my unit, they didn't understand what's the matter with me. Why I left America and came to make Aliyah, and why did I came to Eretz Israel? But this basic enthusiasm of the dream, the Zionist dream, I think we need some sort of a Zionist renaissance. And sometimes lone soldiers, they understand basic things that politicians in Israel had forgotten.
Problem is that nationalism is like a curse word today.
Yeah,
It's awful
it is
to be a
not.
patriot.
It's not woke.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But you're not religious, right?
No,
How do you define
I'm
yourself?
a Jew.
But you're ex-religious.
Not really.
No?
No.
Your father is a rabbi, no?
Yeah, he's not a rabbi. He was never like a formal rabbi. He learned and he received
rabbinical
the like the JTS, but in Israel. But he never served as a rabbi of a community.
Traditional.
Yeah, more
Come
of a
from a
traditional. Yeah.
And that school that you formed, it still keeps going?
Yeah, sure. The Tavor Leadership Academy, two pre-military academy for leadership, service year Shnat Shirut, programs for officers in the IDF.
Is Keshet the original Keshet Mechina?
Keshet, no, there is the program that calls Keshet for high school students.
Ah, okay.
And also Olim Tavor for people who made Aliyah and needed a short period of Mechina. So we created this program, and then it was embraced by the Ministry of Defense, who then expanded it. And now I think the Jewish agency is running these kind of activities. But
what's your dream?
My big dream. First of all, to be a good father, in spite the challenge of politics. I'm afraid of missing out the education of my children because it requires a lot of time, and the children are small, and that's my greatest concern.
Now we feel guilty for bringing you here
and stealing time.
So that's
how many kids, and what are their names?
3. Uri, 3 years old. Noga, 6 years old. She just write a book, a small book. She wanted to go and see if there's an end to the rainbow.
Nice.
And Jonathan is the big one. We learn English together with the songs. I mentioned it before we started the formal interview.
Eye of the Tiger.
Yeah, the Eye of the Tiger. And
what's your big political dream?
Political?
No, it's like
I don't have.
Come on, don't be a politician.
No. I think it is a huge mistake to dream to be in a specific role, because when that's your dream, you might be in a crossroad, and then you have ideology and the role, and you will get confused.
Sounds like someone we know.
Yeah.
Or have heard of.
So my
like
dream to make the greatest impact I can for Netzach Israel.
You plan to stay in politics, though.
Bezrat Hashem. That's the
no,
public.
I was going for the blurb.
That's the public plan. It's we need two
it's up
sides.
to them.
Yeah, it's up to them.
Right. So those schools of yours, can people donate or support those?
Yeah, Tavor Leadership Academy.
They have there's a website?
Yeah, for sure, better.
Okay, so we'll put links, guys, if you know someone who it can be relevant to, or if you want to support those causes, we will put links. You're on social media.
But I must just say, there's nothing political about Tavor. It's a Zionist organization, but the people they don't necessarily support me.
They might be left-wing, they might be right-wing.
Got nothing to do with
my
place
for
private political views.
You're on social media. On Twitter, but you tweet
Twitter,
in
Facebook,
Hebrew usually, but
there is translation, no?
Yeah, you can use it to translate.
Yeah.
So Amichai Chikli, you spell it with CH, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll put links to that. Thank you so much for coming.
It was wonderful. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Before we go, first of all, we're sponsored by Masa.
Yes.
Masa, nice.
Yes.
Yeah. I was actually on Masa. Masa is a huge part of the reason I'm here, guys. If you want to find opportunities in Israel, they have amazing opportunities, gap year programs, academic programs, internships. Check out masaisrael.org to find out more information.
Also, Arutz Sheva, israelnationalnews.com. Check them out for a great source in English for news. And also...
ajn.timesofisrael.com, the Australian
Yes.
Jewish news for the Australian angle, ajn.timesofisrael.com.
We accept donations, so please go to 2ngb.com/donate.
And get yourself a nice Hanukkah mug.
Yes.
Nice Jewish boy, BDS tears.
Happy Hanukkah.
Happy
Yeah,
Hanukkah, everyone.
happy Hanukkah.
Thank you so much for coming.
Bye-bye.
Good luck.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.